let's get started. And I just want to say thank you to you so much. And thank you to everyone for joining us today for our webinar to discuss future-proofing your leadership skills. Ever-evolving world of work. For those who may not know me, my name is Elizabeth Pettit and I'm the founder and managing director of PPD Search, and we're an executive search and recruitment firm that recruits roles up to CEO level. We've been doing that since 2006, primarily for the pharmaceutical and medtech medical device industries. We've had an excellent response to this webinar, as I just said, which is no surprise given the topic, our speaker, and the general appetite to arm ourselves with skills for the future. In an era of rapid technological advancements and shifting business paradigms, it's become increasingly crucial to equip ourselves with the right skills and intelligence to thrive in the evolving professional landscape. Today, we're going to delve into several key areas that are paramount to success both now and in the years to come, drawing insights from prominent research, industry trends, and an expert in this field, in Anna Lucia. We will explore the World Economic Forum's top skills required beyond 2025. Additionally, we will shed light on the importance of emotional intelligence, intuitive intelligence, creativity, and thinking skills in shaping our personal and professional journeys. As we progress, we will unravel the notion that creativity and certain types of intelligence are limited to specific individuals or professions. We will discover how creativity, intuitive intelligence, and diverse thinking skills can be harnessed by anyone to reach their full potential and drive innovation. Furthermore, we'll address the ever-evolving relationship between humans and artificial intelligence. While AI continues to advance, there's a consensus that human involvement remains indispensable in harnessing algorithmic data, explaining it and ensuring that it aligns with our intentions. So I'm delighted, as I said, to introduce our guest speaker, Anna Lucia McKay. Anna Lucia is a highly acclaimed educator, speaker, writer, and consultant in the fields of leadership, emotional intelligence, and innovation. She is the best-selling author of The 4 Mindsets, How to Influence, Motivate, and Lead a High-Performance Team, and that book is sold in over 30 countries. Since 2016, Anna Lucia has been a moderator for the Harvard Business School and has trained and spoken to their corporate clients globally in the fields of strategy, leadership, communication, and emotional intelligence. In 2021, she was selected as a judge for Australia's Best of Business Awards in the category of innovation and entrepreneurship. Anna Lucia serves as a board chair with the finance industry and is a chair for the CEO Circle in Australia. So let's get into it.
Firstly,
we're going to talk
about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk enough from me. The World Economic Forum on the future of jobs. So Anna Lucia, what are we seeing as the leading skills that have been identified by the World Economic Forum that are essential for professionals?
Absolutely. So there's a list of about 15 of them, and every 5 years or so they issue a list of what is going to be really important and what will differentiate each of us into the future. And the trend has been quite consistent since, even 2010, 2015. There are just certain skills on there that are being more and more amplified. So if you were to look at the list, the types of skills that are on there are, as you would expect, the highly technical skills. So in terms of IT, so there's probably about 5 key IT skills on there, but the rest of them are made up of cognitive skills and also emotional intelligence / social skills. So within the sort of social skills area, they talk about the ability to persuade, our ability to negotiate, active learning, I think, is number 2, active learning. And at the very top of the list is innovation and creativity. But if you were to look at that list and to divide them into 3 areas, it definitely is those high-end IT skills, but then probably 8 or 9 of them would fall into the cognitive skills, how we think, how we process information, how we simulate information, how we interpret information, how we solve problems. But then you've got your emotional intelligence skills, and emotional intelligence is in there as, I think, number 12, even though they're not in a particular order. and then your social skills and negotiation. And then another one would be your leadership skills and level of influence. So what we're seeing is there's an absolute trend, and it's not just the World Economic Forum, it would be any of the larger consulting companies out there who issue these kind of lists. They are all speaking the same language. So whether it's PwC, Deloitte's, the whole range of organizations who delve into this, there is a very definite theme. And certainly at Harvard Business School, there was a recent article about C-suite skills or leadership skills, and they definitely talk about how, and in fact, if you look at the graph, the emphasis now in choosing people to be in top leadership positions, there's an absolute emphasis on that social skills. The graph goes like that, and a de-emphasis, so not important, but a de-emphasis on the technical skills when they're going down. So it really is going like that. So there's a significant change, which, you know, we've seen coming for quite some time, but it definitely has been amplified in recent times.
And how can individuals acquire and develop these skills to stay relevant in the rapidly changing job market?
Yeah, so obviously the threshold skills that you must have are the skills to do the job that you're employed for. But what is going to differentiate you from your peers or from competitors, whether it's at a business level or as a leadership, is your ability to understand people and what makes them tick, and also to develop to a very high level your cognitive skills and your thinking skills.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot left and right brain thing going on here, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, which is hard to get both the things in the one person, because often when you've got a strong people person or people leader with those social skills, they don't have the technical skills, you know what I mean, and vice versa. So it's interesting. So what are the potential implications for industries and businesses that fail to adapt to these ever-evolving skill requirements?
Oh, well, their relevance and sustainability into the future will be definitely called into question. There is no doubt that businesses and individuals that succeed today are of more of the right brain function. Those are the areas where relationships and creativity lie. And so organizations that are doing really well out there and are succeeding and beating their competitors are very right-brained organizations. And those that are still caught up in the technical side of things are being left behind. So of course we need, I sort of talk in absolute sometimes, of course we need those high-level technical skills, very relevant, but as I say, it becomes more threshold. It's not going to differentiate you, because most of the left brain skills that we do within organizations, we have been able to outsource, get systems to help us, but we still know, and we'll talk about AI later on, we still know there are certain things that systems and AI cannot do for us. And if we want to stay relevant and ahead of the game, we have to be well versed in the areas that the robots are not ready for.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, we'll come to that. But let's talk about emotional intelligence, because I've seen you speak on EQ and it's amazing. So why is emotional intelligence considered a critical foundation skill in today's business landscape?
Goes back to similar things to what I've mentioned before. Your technical expertise is not going to differentiate you. Your ability to understand people and what makes them tick, that's whether it's your peers, your team, your customers, whoever you're dealing with, your ability to read those people and read the situations that you find yourself in, being able to pick up on the nuances, gives you more information to be able to make better decisions and problem solve. So for those that would just rely on their technical skills to do that, you are missing a huge wealth of information from the people side of things, the nuances that will help you make a better decision and solve a problem using a very broad range of thinking skills, I guess, or a broad range of data.
But wouldn't you have needed that? In my mind, leaders have needed that forever. So what's the difference between where we're going now to before, I guess, basically? So because I would have thought leaders always needed those skills, but you're saying more now.
much more now and much more amplified now. So, I mean, I started working in emotional intelligence probably 25 years ago, and the world wasn't quite ready for it. We'd started to hear about Daniel Goleman. It was starting to be popularized. But, you know, I remember going to engineering companies. I was saying to somebody yesterday, and we ran a whole program with them, but we never mentioned the word emotional intelligence. It was a leadership program, and it was a set of skills which all happened to be around emotional intelligence, because people really kind of shut down when they heard the term emotion, whereas now we're much more comfortable with that. So previously, we didn't need those skills as much because in the past, your business was as good as its output, and your people were as good as their technical skills. So the better that you were and more competent you were as in your job, whether it was not necessarily sales, but say accounting or law, you could get on in life and go through the ranks and get to the top with that technical experience. The emotional intelligence did not define or differentiate you. Whereas now, over the last decade or so, we absolutely know it does differentiate us in all professions, whether it is lawyers, engineers. So it's the ability to translate complex information into a way that a layperson can understand, or to interpret data to be able to use that, reading people, understanding the user experience, and with that making some really good decisions and innovating. So that deep level of emotional intelligence is critical. And I would say to you that it's only been in recent times that people have become much more, well, they understand the importance of being self-aware, which is the absolute cornerstone of emotional intelligence. If you're not self-aware, then your journey is going to be very difficult and it's going to be tricky. And I think this language of self-awareness and self-management and empathy, dare I say, I mean, again, that was not a word that was accepted in business previously. And now it is an absolute critical business skill. It is, you know, the epitome of being able to truly understand where that person is coming from, how they will think, and then using that information to produce products or services that sometimes people don't even know they need. And of course, we know the leaders in the world are very good at that. Some of the leading organizations in the world have been great at that, coming up with ideas and innovations we didn't even know we needed, such as the iPhone, as would be an example. So that deep level of empathy in the terms of truly understanding what makes people tick is critical.
Okay. And how can businesses foster and promote emotional intelligence among their employees?
In my mind, as soon as an employee joins an organization, they should be on some kind of pathway to build their emotional intelligence. So with some sort of best practice organizations, they put it into their induction. So you go through your normal induction process, which would be to become job competent in as short a time as possible, and to understand, you know, the culture of the company, the core messages and so on, but also to start developing employees with their levels of self-awareness and their self-management skills and so on. So it needs to start when somebody joins an organization. And as they move through, they can become more and more advanced. I mean, there's 20 different skill sets or 20 different competencies. So they can be threaded through from the moment you start to the time when you get to senior leadership.
Is there ever someone who just doesn't have emotional intelligence and self-awareness and cannot be, you can't get to those 20 competencies? Because that, I would imagine that should start in the interview phase. So when someone's being interviewed, you should be able to assess, and it's hard, right? But you should be able to assess their EQ then. Because when we get job briefs, we always get told we want someone with EQ, always, right? Yeah. But it's not that easy to assess that, right? Like, what would you say to that as far as, you know, is there people that just don't have it and will never have it?
No, it's a mindset.
Okay.
It's about switching it on. And this is the thing with those job roles out there where it wasn't needed in the past, those people who may not have that naturally innate ability, who may be more left-brained. Of course, we all come into this world with different levels of it. We all have it. But the reality of it is it's a choice to turn on. and it's a choice to be interested. And with adult learning, and that was my background, is with adults to learn and to absorb information and process information, there has to be a what's in it for me. And that's why now the lawyers and the engineers and those who would not have been synonymous with emotional intelligence are super keen. They know this is the differentiator, and now they've switched on that desire. And I would say some professions that previously didn't rank it highly can't get enough of it now.
And what are the tangible benefits of cultivating emotional intelligence in the workplace?
Oh, there are so many. I think the big ones are to do with resilience and stress management. We are all working in a world today where we are bombarded with information. Our jobs have become much more complex. I think leadership has never been harder than it is now, just never has. So emotional intelligence absolutely helps you self-manage. And I think, and in fact, on some of the skills lists of the future, it actually is self-management. What is going to differentiate all of us is our ability to self-manage, to be able to pace ourselves and to build our levels of resilience. Otherwise, our mental health is at stake. And I do believe that emotional intelligence is where everyone needs to start to control and manage their own mental health. So given that without emotional intelligence, you're going to get yourself into all sorts of situations. You will frustrate people, you'll have conflict, and stress will increase. So just as a starting point, EQ really helps individuals manage themselves better by understanding what makes them tick and what brings out the best and the worst in them. It obviously, from a sales perspective, those with high levels of EQ, they will read their clients and the patterns in their clients so well. From your perspective, of course, as a recruiter, of course you would have EQ, and it would be hard to understand at times that some people don't naturally have that. So there are many outcomes and many benefits. And so if you're interested in building the culture of your company, making it a more happier place, for want of a better word, helping people to manage their stresses and their relationships, it's a must.
Yeah, I guess all I would say is if companies don't have a level of EQ within their business, from my perspective, then candidates who I'm trying to place don't want to work there. So right. It's reputation, it's credibility, it's care. The numbers obviously are so key, right? But you've got to balance that with the care factor for the people. And I think that does come, that your EQ is aligned with caring for your people, I would say. And that's where we see people leave jobs. And the main reason people leave jobs is because of usually a lack of EQ within the organisation, and certainly that leader.
For sure. And the generations in our workforce now, very much predominantly Gen Y and Gen X are just about to join us. It is absolutely critical to get the best out of them and to help them reach their potential.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, yeah, Gen Zs, I mean, that's another whole webinar, but maybe I'll do that one day, but they
get a bad rap. I'm all for Gen Z.
I know, they get a bad. I just contributed to a published article on them, and I said they're good, go the Gen Zs, but they're not easy to manage, right? You've got to really understand.
We made them, that's the thing. We parented them, we made them, we parented them, and that's the anomaly.
Yes, that's right. So it's your fault.
Our fault, that's right.
So let's talk about intuitive intelligence and decision making.
Yeah.
How does intuitive intelligence contribute to success and innovation in various fields?
Well, first of all, we have to understand what intuition is all about. And again, this is something that a lot of people, may not have had the time to give it a lot of thought, but intuition is derived from instinct and logic, whereas most people think it's just something that you have. And again, like emotional intelligence, it's innate in you. And indeed, there are people who are more intuitive than others, but it's also an area that you can develop. And it needs to be developed because it's all about being able to spot patterns in anything. So in people's behavior, in processes, in businesses, in clients, so that innate ability to spot patterns and be able to use that information again to be able to relate to people or innovate or create. So intuition, like I say, it's instinct and logic. So many of us don't understand that our intuition is built up from conscious and unconscious actions. So there will be things that are in your brain that you have unconsciously attained at some point and you haven't used it yet, but there may come a situation which we can all relate to where you're in the heat of the moment and you've got to come up with an answer, and all of a sudden you know somewhere deep in your brain you pull a piece of information or a piece of data that helps you get through that. It wasn't consciously there, you didn't actively put that in as such. So intuition is conscious and unconscious, and the more we build our intuition, the more likely we are to better solve problems. So it's absolutely the precursor to creativity and innovation, and it also builds on emotional intelligence. So you have to have a certain amount of emotional intelligence in order to be intuitive, because as I said, without emotional intelligence, your ability to think clearly and self-manage and manage your relationships decreases. Therefore, your intuition, it's almost like your head closes and your head goes down and you stop reading all the signs around you that are feeding you information.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Okay. So you're saying that you don't have to have it innately within you, like EQ, you can build on it and you can learn it. And again, it's a mindset thing.
You absolutely can. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And basically, along with EQ and intuitive intelligence, the benefit of having those heightened within your business, do you think that businesses that have those things are more successful?
There's no doubt. Absolutely no doubt. So for those people who are not self-managing, they are in fight or flight mode, okay? So therefore, when you're in fight or flight mode, your ability to perceive and collect data and information goes down.
Yeah, because you're fearful, right?
That's right. Your emotional brain has taken over. So your logical brain shuts down or slowly shuts down. And sometimes it can shut down in a moment. We've all been in those situations. I was nearly in it 20 minutes ago where, you know, something happens that it's unexpected. And if you allow emotion to take over, you can render yourself incapable, you know, such as stage fright. So we've always got to keep that emotional brain in check so that our logical brain keeps firing.
Yeah, right. Okay. God, there's a lot to think about. It's like, oh, how do I get all these things, all these skills? Okay, let's talk about creativity, because I was reading somewhere recently about some research where CEOs globally were interviewed and surveyed, and they said they feel that the main skill needed today in business is creativity.
Yep.
So why is creativity important for individuals and organisations beyond your traditional artistic and creative jobs?
Yeah. So there's no doubt that what they're saying is absolutely right. So today in our business world, what differentiates us is our emotional intelligence. But in the future, what is going to differentiate us is our creativity. Yeah. So that's why this is almost called future proofing, because if you want to, which we all do, want to remain relevant and be at the top of our game, we have to understand what creativity is all about. And therein lies the first problem. Most people don't understand what creativity is all about. So it simply in fact, you know, when I do a speech, I'll say to people in the audience, okay, who here would describe themselves as creative? And of course it would change depending on the audience, but overall there would be probably 10% of people who would put their hand up and say, yes, I'm creative. Yeah. And then I'd ask them the next question, and that is, who in this audience is capable of coming up with a good idea? And of course 100% goes up. And that's what creativity is. That is how it's defined. It's your ability just to come up with an idea. Innovation is just simply putting that idea into practice and rolling that idea out. So each and every one of us is creative. And I've learned this. When I was younger, I was, you know, not good at art at school, did not interest me. I would have been much more left brain. And I defined myself as, oh, I'm not very creative. And in fact, I went through my earlier life and into young adult. I'm just not creative. And a boss once said to me, Anna, not that I said it all the time, but Anna, stop saying that. You are so creative. And it's just, I completely misunderstood what creativity is all about. And I related it to anything to do with sort of artistic occupations.
Yeah, of course. You think,
and most people do. Most people
yes.
do.
Yes, I haven't painted, I can't paint like Monet or Picasso, so I'm not creative, you know.
I'm just not that way inclined. That's
right. Yeah.
But therein is also the mindset that, you know, I absolutely believe we can do anything we put our mind to. And again, it's a mindset. So you could decide one day, no, I'm going to stop saying I'm not creative, and I'm going to go and find what I'm creative at. And go, and you can get yourself to a point where you can achieve in that space, but you've got to have the desire to do that. And as adults, that's innate in us.
From a commercial, you know, business perspective, you know, how can people tap into their creative talents and then identify what they are?
Okay. So there are quite a few ways of doing that. One of them would be, you know, one of the best little tests out there that many of you will have heard of and you will have done. I came across it about 15 years ago and I just love it. And that's the Herman brain test. So it's about whole brain thinking. So I'm sure many of you people on there may have heard of that. But it talks about our thinking styles, and there are 4 thinking styles. And the first one would be categorized as blue, as many of these things are there. It's a quadrant, which we've seen with DISC and all sorts of other things. But the blue one is the analytical thinking type person. So this person loves any kind of analysis, looking for patterns in numbers, usually very good with money. We'd often find all our accountants sitting in that sort of blue area. And it's not a competency, it's a preference. It is, I love that kind of work and this makes me tick. And I find it quite easy to do. It's not too testing for me. And then we've got the green person, and this is more a tactical person. They're still left-brained, but these people are more about process and procedure, and they're fantastic at processes and procedures, understanding how things work. They are too very logical, but they're a very different species to the blue person, but they are both left-brained. So then there's just 2 more I'll tell you, and then we'll talk about how it works. Then we can go around to our people, and these people are very in touch with emotions. They're very in touch with people. They are very sort of intrapersonal types. They're usually quite chatty, but very comfortable dealing with people and with the emotions and things that come with that. And then finally, we've got the yellow, and that's the creative. And that is where your pure creatives would kind of sit. Those people who just love thinking outside the square and thinking of the crazy and how that could work, and often quite strategic. So we all have a preference in those areas, and sometimes we'll have a double preference or a double dominance. But depending on the type of person you are, depending on where you sit, that is where your creativity is going to be. So if you're a blue, your creativity is going to be about you being able to see the patterns in numbers and come up with ideas to overcome situations.
Right.
if you're a green person, you're going to see your creativity is in the processes and procedures. You'll just automatically see that, oh my goodness, there's a step there that is just not needed or needs to be enhanced.
Right.
So we all have creativity in our areas. Other people, it's the ability to read people and the user experience. Some people will just go, but they will just absolutely be able to anticipate and predict that particular change that you're going to make in the system, what impact that will have on the team or whatever.
Yeah, right. Okay, so it's working out, you know, where you sit. I think most people would know, right? They know what they like to do.
They do. And that's where creativity is.
Yeah, and then
coming up with ideas.
Right, then you find your activity within where you sit. What was it called? Herman? Herman?
Herman, Herman brain thinking. Okay. And it's all about whole brain thinking, because what is ideal is most of us would have single, double, some may have triple, and if you're really, really lucky, you may have quadruple dominance, and that is you can move in and out of all of those thinking styles very easily. So, you know, your ideal CEO or ideal senior leader, or where we want to develop ourselves, is that, okay, I actually feel really comfortable in that sort of analytical area. I love that. And I'm pretty good with the process. I've got the people and I've got the creative. Like you said earlier on, that is actually quite hard in human beings. And that's why we typically are kind of one or two or the other. So to be able to really bend our thinking and have that mental flexibility will really help us in the future. And that is what's going to help those CEOs who talk about creativity and innovation being number one, and they're absolutely right. This is how we develop ourselves. We've got to expand our thinking. We've got to get uncomfortable and go into zones that are not our natural preference, and we've got to start to play in those zones.
Okay, and then if in the meantime, or if we can't ever get to that whole brain thinking, because I think that for most people that would be quite challenging, and I think most of us, or not, well, a lot of us probably do have a bit of a like one preference, and then a bit of each thing, or maybe a little bit of the blue when we're red or whatever.
Yeah.
Is it wise for a senior leader or CEO, MDG, and whatever you want to call them, to hire people that provide a balance for them? So if I'm really red, and then I would need to hire someone that was really blue and really yellow, because I'm not good at financial and accounting and process, I'm people. So that's probably what I find when I look at some other research is around leaders hiring people that balance out what they do, like that are better than them at those things that they're not good at.
100%. And having the courage to do that at the lower levels as well. We want mixed and diverse teams. And what you will find in many organizations is that yellow is really quite low. I mean, I've done this now thousands of times, where I've, you know, done the testing and done fun exercises with people in their teams. And we identify ourselves and sort of stand in the different corners of the room so we can see the spread. And it's rare, very rare, that I will be in a room and I actually can't think of the last time where most of the people were in the yellow. It just
really,
oh, absolutely. They're usually, you know, a couple over there. So that's why CEOs are concerned and are thinking about, okay, how do we do this? How do we help our people be more creative, and how do we get them there? And the way to get them there is it has to start with that emotional intelligence. So we unblock their minds. Then we've got to build the intuition, and the intuition comes with growth. It's very significantly aligned to the growth mindset, being open and building on knowledge, situations, and so on. And then we're in the best space possible to come up with some fantastic ideas that can be almost proven by that stage. So intuition is about getting the data. Creativity is about connecting the dots.
And is that what you do? Is that what you help companies do? Because I would imagine that, like, That to me is extremely overwhelming. If I was to want to implement that in a business, I would be like, where do I start? So is that what you do, Anna Lucia? Is that what you do?
I do. And you've got to, what we're doing in this hour can be really overwhelming because we're covering so much. My job and people who do what I do, it's about simplifying it and making it just step by step. And so the first thing in an organization, what you must be doing now to be ready for the future is working on that emotional intelligence piece. Because if you don't have that in place, you will people will be overly emotional and their minds will be closed. And we need open minds. We need curious minds. We need growth mindsets. And then from that, the byproduct of that is we will end up with more creative cultures down the track. So we've got time. We've got time. This is, you know, it doesn't have to happen in the next year or so, but there is a pathway. And we need to get on that pathway sooner than later. And it will start with the EQ.
Okay, let's talk about thinking skills and preferences. So what are the different types of thinking skills and how do they influence performance and potential?
So, well, those are the 4 types of thinking skills. In terms of how they influence performance and potential, absolutely, we need to identify where our preferences are, what we're good at, and then we need to go and play outside of our zone, and we need to get into other areas to develop those different styles of thinking. And then there is more likelihood that we will reach our full potential.
So if people can't have you come and teach them, how do they identify their dominant thinking preferences and then leverage them effectively?
I'm sure there would be things on the internet. Well, you could actually go to the Herman Brain International and get them to do it for you. Absolutely. But there'll be things on the internet that you can just have a little play with. But if you are developing your self-awareness, which you should be, it's an ongoing journey for all of us. You'll already have some insights into what you like, what your preferences are, and then it's about stepping outside of your comfort zone. So for example, I'm working with someone at the moment and she's looking to go to the next level, which is very senior. She is not particularly good, in her own words, at the analytical side of things. Reports kind of frighten her, and certain elements of budgeting and forecasting. So, okay, what do we do? In her organization, they don't teach finance for beginners as such, not for beginners, but
yeah, I get it.
So I've sent her off to a community college for $300 to start her journey there. So we've got to identify and be honest with ourselves of what we're not so good at. And if our organization doesn't offer it, there are many means of getting that. And in that area, I think it is good to be taught it, to be in a classroom. It's quite hard to teach yourself, but all of us must be reading broadly. And we must be reading and interested in contrary thoughts to what we have. So if you've got a definite thought about something, certainly read that book, but please then go over to someone else who completely disagrees with you and read that contrary viewpoint.
But I guess
and then expands our minds.
Exactly. And then be vulnerable enough to be able to say, I'm not always right, and be a vulnerable leader. I think Brené Brown talks about that all the time.
Yeah, we all know we can't be good at everything, right? There are some things we're really good at and we should be really proud of that, but don't feel defensive about things that you don't know. And it's going to get wider and wider and wider as we go forward in the world of business, because there's things coming at us that most of us probably don't understand too much. But we've just got to open our minds and be, it's such a trite word, but curious and explore. We have to explore, and that will build your intuition and that will feed your creativity. But like I said, the EQ is the precursor, because if you've not got that, you will not have the desire or the bandwidth to open your mind. You'll be in fight or flight.
Yeah, right. So let's talk about you know, finally the human interpretation in the era of AI. Now, I don't know if everyone on this webinar has had a look at ChatGPT, but and I've been learning about various AI tools in the last couple of weeks, and there's many, and they're absolutely incredible. Yeah, certainly. I did a 6-hour webinar on AI recently, 3 hours one day, 3 hours the next, and being introduced to all of this stuff. And they were saying, you know, if you're not using AI and open to AI, then your business won't survive in the next sort of however many years. Maybe that's quite a, you know, aggressive statement, but I was thinking, wow, that's pretty incredible the way that AI is going to, unfortunately, it is going to take away jobs. It is.
Yep.
It's already doing that. You know, graphic designers, things like that, certainly copywriters, anything like that. I mean, what it can do is ChatGPT is amazing. But if we talk about the role that humans play in interpreting data, AI data, and ensuring it aligns with intended outcomes, how do we, you know, what role do humans play in that?
Well, the first role is, and what you've just done is fantastic, and that is we've got to open our minds to what AI is bringing. We have to be, it's probably one of the key areas. If you're going to go and explore or be curious about something, you need to get your head into AI. And I myself, I'm no expert in AI, but like I saw emotional intelligence 20 plus years ago, I knew this was going to be a thing. I knew that the world was going to change, and this was how it's going to change. And obviously we all know AI is going to do the same. So I would just be saying to all of the listeners here, if you haven't already, and I know we've got so much on our plates and there's only so much our brains can take, but you must be interested in this. And there are simple ways of doing it. I mean, Blink List, I love, most of you may have thought.
Oh yeah, I love that too. That's amazing.
Brilliant. It's brilliant. It's bite size. It's 15 minutes.
Oh, that is so good.
Yeah. And over the last few months, I've been going in and listening to in the car all of their AI books, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's really simplified my understanding of many things, and it's opened my mind. And I love it. I actually really love it. And the more I learn about it, the more I'm really interested in it. So this is one area that I would say we all have to be interested. And then when it comes to the human sort of side of it, it's our job to almost outpace the robots, I say, in terms of the thinking, because it is still really limited and we're a long way off. Maybe in our lifetimes, or my lifetime, probably with where we will have artificial general intelligence, where it really is reading the emotions and it really can match us. We are a long way from that. So in the meantime, we need to develop the skills, the algorithmic skills that we have, which goes back to the intuition, it goes back to connecting dots, it goes back to pattern spotting. We need to keep up with this. And then on top of that, we can apply the emotional filters and the emotional understanding to make sure that whatever we're building with AI, we're going to get the right response. So it's absolutely our duty to interrogate these systems in such a way, or to understand where there may be loopholes and to see things coming ahead of time. So, you know, for example, Tay was one of the first robots back in 2016. And it's quite funny, even though it was awful what the robot was saying, but he was like a rogue robot and was shut down within a few weeks because he was just misprogrammed completely and started saying the most insane things on Twitter, and was very racist, and so it wasn't programmed right. So this is where we come in. We have that understanding, we have that knowledge, and so it's in the programming. So the right people programming, the right, just getting the right input from humans to ensure that mistakes like that don't happen.
Yeah. So I was just going to say, so what are the potential risks or challenges associated with relying solely on algorithmic data interpretation? Obviously, that is one that happened. That is one. But, you know, I always say if you are using something like ChatGPT, you need to review it as an example, and you need to look at what it's saying and giving back to you. And usually it requires some editing, and it does require you to usually edit it to be coming from, you know, the right intent as a human versus the AI. But what would you say on that?
It's got to reflect the intent, and we've got to spend more time thinking about bias in ourselves, and then certainly when it's being programmed or not programmed into AI. So, I mean, that's another area that each of us need to work on from a self-awareness perspective. You know, what biases do we have? And only in having that awareness, then we can see it in other people, we can see it in systems, and we can prevent it from happening. But bias is sort of the enemy of AI right now, and that is, we're not advanced enough for many of the systems to really have that deep level understanding of biases.
Okay. It's a lot to think about, that is for sure.
Yes, it is, but it's fun.
Yeah. Overwhelming. So that's excellent. Now we might just go to question time. I do have a couple of questions here. One is, can you assess someone's IQ? Sorry, can you assess someone's EQ? Sorry, not IQ. Of course you can do IQ. Can you assess someone's EQ?
Yes, you absolutely can. So I've been doing that now, and many systems out there, but I think the first time I did was like 2003, 2004. So I use the Hay Emotional and Social Competency Inventory. I've been using that for years, and I find that very useful, but there are all sorts of EQ surveys that you can use. 360 is always the better way to go. There are some that are just personal, you just rate yourself. I just think there's a lot to be said about doing it from a 360 perspective. So
having your colleagues do it, yeah.
Colleagues, clients, you know, all sorts. So our ideal number of people to do it may be between 7 and 8. Ideally, we can do it with less, but we would go to peers, we would go to colleagues, we'd go to clients. People would nominate them, and maybe just someone who knows them really well outside of work.
And sorry, back on the Hay, is it HAY?
Yes.
Okay. So the Hay,
they were taken over. They've now amalgamated with Egon Zehnder, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that is certainly Hay or 360 feedback to assess EQ. But I'd say
there's other ones like Genesis. There's I forget the name of it, the bar one, BARR, I forget the first name. There's all sorts, but yes, it can absolutely be assessed.
Okay. Could you assess it? I suppose you could assess it in an interview through using your intuition and gut feel and instinct and logic around how self-aware they are in an interview. But yeah, it can be hard.
It can be, but that comes down to the power of the questions. Yeah. And if you are using your gut instinct and intuition, as we can't help but do an interview, then what we have to do, and this is what people don't tend to, is we have to look at the contrary side. We have to look for contrary evidence to either prove or disprove that gut feel. So where people go wrong with interviews out in the businesses themselves is they've got that gut feel and they keep going down a path to further prove that bias, rather than thinking, okay, I have this gut feel, I'm now going to come up with a question that's just going to totally challenge my gut, and it will either validate or invalidate whether this person is emotionally intelligent or not, as an example. But too often in interviews, we just keep pushing down the same path.
Yeah.
And in the cold light of day, we don't realize we're doing it, but there's a bias effect.
Yeah, it's hard because you want to compare apples with apples, right? So you're asking candidates the same questions to obviously be able to compare how they answer the same questions. But you also need to have different questions depending on the personality and style of the individual, right? So it's I mean, that interviewing is not a science. It's hard. It's
hard. It's an art. It's an art.
It's a skill.
Science is easy. You know, you just follow a set of steps. It's an absolute art, like emotional intelligence. You can get it wrong, you know.
Oh, it happens all the time. And we get it wrong. Hopefully not too often given our experience, but we do. It's hard. Yeah. So, and the next question is, I'm interested in knowing what those 20 competencies are in terms of EQ.
Yeah. Okay. So they fall into 4 categories. So the first one is self-awareness. Then we've got, so again, if we went in, people love their quadrants. We've got self-awareness, self-management, social skills, and relationship skills. So what falls into the categories is, you know, the starting points. If I was ever doing a program for emotional intelligence, it has to start with self-awareness. So building your skills and self-awareness. Then you've got your self-management. Then you've got your empathy. Then you've got the ability to coach and mentor, conflict management, persuasion skills. So depending on what model that you're looking at will depend on what those competencies are. But what they come down to is pretty much any people competency that you can think of. So as I say, the one that I use, it's coach and mentor. Political savvy, you know, how politically savvy are you in an organization? So it measures across the board, 18 to 20 different competencies.
So and what's that called, that assessment?
That is the ECSI. And I think they've reduced it to 12 competencies now. But my path is always self-awareness, self-management, empathy, influence, and then depending on what the organization needs or what the individual needs, then you choose other competencies, because the reality of it is we can't do it all, otherwise we'd all be walking on water. It would be amazing, but there will be a set of competencies that when you have a look at them, or when you look at your performance reviews, you can see, okay, this is something I need to start on. But I just can't emphasize the whole self-awareness starting point. You need to understand what.
And then Anna Lucia, if you did a workshop for someone, and I've seen as I said, I've seen you present, and it was just amazing. Long time ago now, though, I wanted to see you again. And if you were doing a workshop with a business, is it like 4 hours? Does it take a day? What does it?
No more days, no. So 20 years ago, a day's training would be the norm. No, I prefer to work, and I think my companies do as well. It's short, sharp, and more often. And then in between, people can go away, especially with EQ. It'd be good for people to go away and just do some exercises that they can then come back and report on, and then we can go to the next level. So most of my trainings, and I do less training, I do a lot of speaking these days, but the people that I do train, the typical would be 6 modules over 7 or 8 months, and that would get people well on their journey, and would really help with communications and one of the most popular ones, EQ modules, would be having a difficult conversation, and so there needs to be the precursor to that, and then we do crucial conversations, which really gives people the confidence to have those tricky conversations, whether it's with a client, a peer, or whatever. That's where most people need help.
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. Yeah, we hear a lot of, there's a lot of upset and sadness around conversations that managers have with staff and why staff leave, because the manager hasn't used their self-awareness or EQ, or they just haven't, and they probably have it, but they just haven't known how to deliver it to the employee.
That's exactly right.
And the employee gets super upset and resigns, or whatever it is. Right. They find that it's very confrontational. So there's lots of reasons to learn how to have a difficult conversation, even in life, right?
Oh my God. And that's the beauty of all of this. This, you know, tips over into our personal lives as well. But with those crucial conversations or those difficult ones, we have to, as leaders or senior people, we've got to get good at those, and we've got to be confident, and we've got to know exactly the direction and the objective of this conversation and keep it on track. And we have to put ourselves also in the right mindset, because it's very nerve-wracking for us, let alone the person who sat opposite you. So from the moment you sit down with that person, they're on tender hooks, you're probably on tender hooks. And again, that's where self-management kicks in. You've got to present yourself in such a way that is as least threatening as possible to get the best outcome.
Yeah, of course, exactly. Okay, all right, look, it's been amazing. Thank you so much. I knew it would be. We're coming up to the start. And thank you everyone for joining us today. Really grateful that everyone who's joined us. We've got quite a few people. If you have any more questions and you want to talk to Anna Lucia, is it best to just reach out to you on LinkedIn?
Yes, that's great. Perfect.
So, so Anna Lucia McKay. And in the invite to everybody, I did put your LinkedIn link.
Okay.
And you've helped countless organisations and individuals. I mean, you do individual coaching too, yeah?
Not much, but I do.
Okay. And you know, if we can help you as a you know, search and recruitment firm, please reach out. Most of you I know, I can see who's on this call, on this webinar, sorry. But yeah, you know, for those who I don't know, I'd love to hear from you and you know, have a chat about how we might be able to help or support your business. I hope everyone found today worthwhile. It was, I thought it was excellent. I would love your feedback, and I'm sure Anna Lucia, you'd love some feedback too if anyone would like to give you any.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, we can, that's how we learn, right?
Exactly right.
Yeah. So reach out to me on LinkedIn or email or phone, and Anna Lucia on LinkedIn. I really appreciate everybody's time. Thank you. And thank you, Anna Lucia.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.